All right, if we could be seated. Don't know if it's on, doesn't matter, I'm pretty loud. What's your title? Do you have a title?
No, I'm just Kate.
Okay.
From the ELC.
Okay. All right, for the lunchtime, how many of you are nervous about going to the Hill tomorrow? All right, by the end of this, you won't be. Or if you are, we'll still work with you some more after that. But what's going to happen in this lunch period? We've got a little bit of time and a long ways to go. So if I talk fast, it's because that's the way I am. But what we're going to try to do is we're going to do a little bit of a brief overview about, again, kind of repeating kind of the stuff you may have heard in some of the previous pieces about kind of how to talk about the ask. Because really all you're doing is you're talking about, you're going to your Capitol Hill offices and you're talking about this ask. And you kind of we're going to talk about some of the ways to talk about it, which you've kind of heard from. And then we're going to have a skit to see how one of these things work like. Because some people may have never seen how this is. It's going to be a quick one. And we're going to set that up. And then we're going to have a time for some question and answers about the ask. If you have anything about the ask, any sort of specifics, things you can't, that you just didn't hear yet, that you have, that are brought up somewhere you wanted to ask a question about. At the same time, we're still going to have the resource room. We're still going to be available for other pieces to go over this, so you're not alone. If you don't get it by the end of it, we still got some time. And besides that, it's a lot of fun. This is all what we're about. So we've got, where are we at? Oh. Keep going here. Let me just, oops, sorry. By the way, this is Kate. She's from the ELCA. That's all she wanted to be introduced. So she's one of those Lutherans. Yes.
And friends. All right,
Hey,
so
go back real quick. All right, I want to say one more thing. A lot of times people ask you, why do you do this advocacy thing? We all know why we're here. We know why we've got to do advocacy. I don't have to convince you. You're already here. You're doing it. If you're not going to be doing it tomorrow, you're doing it back home, right? You're going back home and do this? You better shake your head yes. If you don't, then get out. No, just kidding. But maybe. All right, the key thing I would just put up there is just, we talk about charity, we talk about justice, all right? And we really need to talk about that idea of how do we make that charity, if you will, political charity is a word I've heard a lot sometimes used. As a way of how do we bring about advocacy as a way of doing, if you will, political charity. It's really about saying and asking the why questions and then coming up with to our members of Congress and getting the answers for that. And that's what we're talking about. So to help do this, you're going to need your folders. You just can have those handy. You don't need to refer to them all the time, but they're going to be here. And in there, there are some very important pieces of paper if you haven't read those. And I know you all had your assignment the other night, so you already read this. This is the ask. Nice multicolored piece. We're going to refer to the talking points from time to time. That's the yellow sheet. Talking points are the kind of, a lot of what we're putting here into this kind of part that Kate and I are going to share. It's kind of contained in long form in the talking points. For more of a background, there is the blue backgrounder. All right, so if you've got that, that's another, it goes in a little more depth. All right, so the blue one is backgrounder, blue backgrounder. That worked out really well, alliteration. The other piece you will see in there is another one that looks a lot like the ask, but it's on 2 pages. There's a place for you to put some contact information on the back. That's the leave behind. We'll talk about that in a second. So just know that's the leave behind. These are all on the left side. These originally start on the left side of your page. There's a report form. We'll talk about that at the very end. That's pink, I think that color is. And the other piece you're going to need to have probably most handy and to use it specifically or especially this afternoon when you're planning your visits is the salmon colored, orangish colored, the Ecumenical Advocacy Days 2013 Visiting Your Members of Congress. It's the how-to of this. And you're going to see how we're going to work with this. So these are the pieces we're going to be using. We'll refer to different colors as much as we can. And it's all to you.
All right, can everyone hear me? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started with our policy ask. As you've heard many times, the Farm Bill. What is the Farm Bill? The Farm Bill, more than any other single piece of federal policy, defines our food system. A bad Farm Bill can be really, really bad for our food system. A good Farm Bill can start to redefine our food system, and that's what we're here to talk about today. The Farm Bill is a giant piece of policy. The last one was created in 2008, written in 2007, passed in 2008. This included $288 billion worth of funding and 15 titles that covered everything from agroforestry research to agroforestry programs to research at land-grant schools to crop insurance programs, etc. Very large and complicated piece of policy. It's rewritten and reauthorized once every 5 to 6 years just because it has to be revisited and readjusted. And where we are right now, you might have heard the Farm Bill, the last Farm Bill, passed in 2008, again expired last October. During the whole fiscal cliff situation that we all heard about last December, January, an extension was passed. That's going to expire this September. But unfortunately, that extension did not affect all the programs, and many of those we're going to be talking about today. So if you take nothing else to the Hill, we want a multi-year reauthorization of the Farm Bill that does the following things. What makes a good Farm Bill to us? What's going to help redefine a good food system? A good Farm Bill will help alleviate hunger and malnutrition. A good Farm Bill will support vibrant farms and strong communities. And a good Farm Bill will protect God's creation. Again, all of this information structured like this is in those documents in your folder that Russ just mentioned. So let's talk about a Farm Bill and how that can alleviate hunger and malnutrition. We heard a little bit about SNAP this morning. We heard about that in the from Barbie in the Place at the Table documentary. So the SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. You might know it under the old name food stamps. I have a feeling if I were to ask you to raise your hand and say if you've ever heard a bad thing about SNAP, if you've heard the iPhones and checkout lines and they're using SNAP benefits, every hand in here would probably be raised. And what's funny is this is actually a very effective program that serves about 48 million Americans. 1 in 6 adults, 1 in 5 kids are at risk of hunger, food insecurity. This is the largest federal nutrition program, and the United States Department of Agriculture, according to them, it has a relatively low rate of fraud. SNAP is effective, it's efficient, and it's responded very well. When the unemployment rate during the recession went up 110% in this country, hunger didn't, because SNAP responded. It receives mandatory funding, which basically means that it's not contingent on an appropriations bill every year. It naturally gets bigger and gets smaller with the need. So when we hear things like, well, the SNAP spending is so much higher in the past few years, well, that's because we've had a recession. It's because we've had more hungry people. The fact that more people are on SNAP means the program's responding like it should. A majority of the recipients of this program are either children, the elderly, or persons with disabilities. Another point I would raise, particularly in some of those tougher offices, is that an increasing number of SNAP benefits are going to our military families. That's a powerful point I think you can take to them.
All right, so we heard a little bit about yesterday morning about the international parts of the making sure that we have adequate nutrition. They're in the Farm Bill. They come in 2 major programs, the Food for Peace and the McGovern-Dole. They amount to a very small part of the Farm Bill, but a very important part of the Farm Bill. And they are ways to deal with high food prices, natural disasters, humanitarian crises. You know, as you kind of develop this and try to share this in your office, the key thing is to talk about, again, how this helps people. And if you remember the story, if you were here yesterday, that Michael shared of the family in Ethiopia, again, it's trying to share some of those stories are the ways of doing this. Is there more? Is that it? There's some question about trying to take this out of the Farm Bill. We want to leave this in the Farm Bill. We want this to be a part of the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill has to have, in our mind, if it's going to talk about adequate nutrition, it's got the domestic United States piece, which is going to be the SNAP piece, among other things, but at least the SNAP piece. And it's going to have the Food for Peace and the, I always get that one wrong, the McGovern-Dole. I always forget Dole. I don't know why. He's from my state. But the McGovern-Dole piece. So it's those two pieces. We'll have, if there's more specific questions about that, we'll have some experts later, but it's kind of thinking about two ways of dealing with the hunger piece. It's both nationally and internationally, all right?
Sure. So kind of our second bucket. So we've had a bucket that talked about alleviating hunger and malnutrition. We believe a strong farm bill, the other bucket of this, will support vibrant farms and strong communities. So as we need to help beginning and socially disadvantaged farmers, and there are programs in the last farm bill that did this. It's difficult for farmers to get started in the business of agriculture, and that's a serious problem when we look at our farm population aging. I think the average farmer today, American farmer, is 58 years old, and the USDA says half of those people are going to be retiring in the next 10 years. So we need a very competent base of a new generation of agriculturalists who can take over and grow our food. Again, though, it's very difficult to get started. Land is expensive. Seed can be expensive. Machinery is expensive. These programs that we'll talk about here, the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Development Program and the Outreach and Technical Assistance for Socially Disadvantaged Farmers and Ranchers programs. These were part of the last Farm Bill, and they were they very much help small farms operated by a younger, more diverse set of farmers get started in this complicated and complex business. It provides everything from technical assistance to education outreach, and we very much want to see that included in a next bill because we do believe it does support vibrant farms and strong communities. And a strong farm bill, we believe, will build local and regional food systems. What that looks like in the United States is farmers markets a lot of times. I like to say that farmers markets are win, win, win. They're wins for the community. They get people out meeting their neighbors, shopping at local businesses. They put more money in the pockets of local growers who are oftentimes smaller operations, helps them support their own operations. And under the program, Farmers Market Promotion Program, a lot of times the Farmers Market Promotion Program, seeks to put farmers markets in the places that need them most. So you've heard of food deserts. Food deserts are areas where oftentimes urban, sometimes rural areas where it's hard. There's not a lot of access to fresh food. The Farmers Market Promotion Program seeks to mitigate this by putting these farmers markets exactly where they should be. So it's a win for the community, a win for the growers, and a win for the consumers. Programs that are coupled onto this, so the Farmers Market Electronic Benefit or EBT transfer program, that allows SNAP recipients, so people on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to redeem their benefits at the farmers markets. I think that's great. They're not buying heavily processed food, which is often the cheapest option. I think sometimes, as one of our speakers talked about this morning, we have a problem when we think that we don't have hunger because we have obesity in this country. The Farmers Market EBT program can help to mitigate this because it's reducing the cost of quality food for people who need it most. And the Senior Farmers Market program operates in a similar way, allowing seniors to use those benefits. And also, it's good for the community because it gets those seniors out of their house. Provides a very good community venue for them, something to do.
Okay, around the world, what we are looking for also is a change in some of the ways. There were some experiments that were done, starting with the Bush administration and being expanded. There's some concerns about where that may go, but what we want to do is be able to make it so that they can buy the food. They're using U.S. dollars, taxpayer dollars, to buy food locally where the need is. That way it doesn't destroy the markets, doesn't flood the markets with U.S. commodities, and also gets there in time for people to be able to use the food. Again, thinking back to the story that Michael shared yesterday about the grandfather was waiting for food. It arrived 7 months after his grandchildren had already died. So we're looking at how do we do this quicker, how do we do it faster, and the changing is trying to look at local and regional procurement programs. So it's trying to use that as the method to try to change how we bring and continue to deliver food aid. No, that's fine. Go ahead. And now the third bucket.
So our third bucket, we want a farm bill that helps alleviate hunger and malnutrition. We want a farm bill that supports vibrant farms and strong communities. And finally, we want a farm bill that protects God's creation. And this will do so by prioritizing funding for programs that promote conservation and protect from degradation. We have a lot of farmland in this country. In the lower 48 states of the United States, about 50% of our land is used for farming and ranching. So therefore, it's really important then that the Farm Bill includes some conservation in it. So there are various programs. One of them that we'll be talking about is a relatively new one. I believe it started in the 2008 Farm Bill, and that's the Conservation Stewardship Program, which incentivizes conservation for farmers and ranchers. I think they can use that for both beginning projects and ongoing projects. Conservation methods. This is important because it helps reduce soil erosion and it helps our water supply and the quantity of it, as well as providing habitat for wildlife. If you learn nothing else, remember that the conservation title is not a piggy bank. It's not a piggy bank, and it's often seen as that by members of Congress. A very recent example, oftentimes the conservation title is just seen as someplace that they can raid to pay for other priorities, and it's not that big to begin with. A very recent example of this was last August when the Midwestern droughts were going on, and a lot of commodity crop farmers and livestock farmers were being hit, and many people in the House were advocating to provide drought relief to these Midwestern farmers to take money from the conservation title, when we know that that's a little backwards, because the funding in the conservation title is trying to help the soil sustain itself, trying to have good water management policies, to mitigate the disaster, the effects of a disaster like a drought. So it didn't end up happening. It's disappointing, but it's always at jeopardy of being raided. So again, the conservation title, not a piggy bank. And we want to see the Conservation Stewardship Program, which was not, remember how in the beginning when we talked about how not all those programs were affected by the extension that they passed during the fiscal cliff, all that ongoing drama. This was one of those programs that was not included. It did not have funding. It does currently have funding under the continuing resolution that Congress just passed in March. But again, that's at jeopardy, and we need a multi-year reauthorization that protects programs for years to come, and this is one of those. So again, we want a multi-year reauthorization of the Farm Bill that alleviates hunger and malnutrition. How does it do that? Protects SNAP, and it sustains international food aid. We want a Farm Bill that supports vibrant farms and strong communities. It does that by helping beginning and socially disadvantaged farmers get started in agriculture. And it helps build local and regional food systems in the United States, farmers markets, and around the world, local and regional procurement. And we want a Farm Bill that protects God's creation, and it does that by prioritizing funding for programs that promote conservation.
Let's go back to that previous slide. So again, if you're thinking about, transitioning to think about how we're going to set this up into our visits, that message of what Kate did in 2 breaths, 3 breaths, is your message. I mean, it can be that, that succinct. We can expand it if you have time, but that's the message. So again, thinking about when you're organizing your visits, and we're going to talk about that, we're going to do that this afternoon. But you organize your visit, think about how you can who's going to talk about these different parts. Who's going to talk about these in a way that's going to bring this message forward. So you're thinking about it again in a kind of as an outline. I like the word buckets. I like buckets. So that kind of idea. So it's again trying to think about how you're putting this together. So that's the piece. So to do that, there is a skit. I think we're going to do a skit now. We're doing a skit? We're doing the skit. We lost Larry. Larry's always having a problem. So Kate's going to set the skit up here.
All right. We're on Capitol Hill. It's Monday after EAD. Come on up, guys. And these constituents are from Pennsylvania, and they are meeting with the office of Senator Gordon. The senator was not available, so they're meeting with TC, who's the legislative director. And like many things on Capitol Hill, a lot's going wrong. You'll see how these advocates just have to be really flexible. They have to roll with the punches. They don't have as much time as they anticipated. So I will turn the mic over to our very skilled and talented returning EAD players.
Oh, hi, welcome.
Hi.
My name's TC Morrow.
Hi, TC.
Hi, I'm Larry Couch. Thank you for inviting us, making arrangements.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that we have to, all the conference rooms were filled, so we got to meet here in the hallway.
A little crowded.
But, yeah, but I've got a few minutes to meet with you, and glad that you're here.
Good. Well, we come representing over 750 people who are here at the national gathering of the Ecumenical Advocacy Days. It's a gathering of Christians from across the country, from a variety of faith traditions, but united in the belief that certain guiding principles should govern us when looking at legislations, specifically like the Farm Bill. And we would like to just talk with you about that. Our Ecumenical Advocacy Days represents over 55 national organizations, national
Wow,
faith
55.
groups. Yes, right. And we're in agreement in terms of the Farm Bill, and we just like to discuss with you, have a conversation with you about the Farm Bill. About how much time do you have?
Just a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Yeah,
5 minutes.
maybe. I don't know when they're going to grab me.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll move quickly then. Our top priority and our top concern is that the Farm Bill address the problem of hunger in the United States. A lot of time we think of that as some problem overseas, but it's a very real problem, both in our urban areas and our rural areas. Right, there is about 55,000 people, mostly children, elderly, handicapped people, many military families, who are at risk of hunger. And the food stamp program currently serves them. And do you think this is something the senator can support and believes in?
Well, SNAP is, I really think, is an area where,
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Senator Gordon. Nice
Oh,
to meet
good.
you.
I'm
I
Larry
heard that
Katz.
some constituents were stopping by.
Right,
I just
yeah.
wanted to come by and say hello.
Yeah, but I wanted to tell you how important the Farm Bill is to us and how much we hope that you can support
I
it.
am here for you.
Especially the SNAP program. Thank you.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Well, look at the time. I have a vote. I've got to go.
oh, thanks for stopping by, Senator.
Thank you.
It's so great that the senator was able to come and meet
Right,
you.
well, we appreciate that, and we know she has many things to do, and we're glad she's able to come by. Carol, you worked with the
Yes, Ms. Morrow,
SNAP programs.
thank you for your time. I'm pastor of Third Christian Church of
Oh, okay.
Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to share with you, we are having increasing numbers of people coming to the church, calling us on the phone, and these people, Ms. Morrow, are hungry. Now, they often have families, but they are just hungry, and they have multiple levels of issues. Many of them would like to work, are not finding jobs, and when you are hungry, these people are not even able to take good care of themselves. They're not able to take good care of their families. They are stressed. They often get sick from that combination of lack of food and stress and not knowing where their next meal is going to come from. So
Well, Carol, I just want to say that's so great that your church is involved in this ministry, and there are so many churches around the country that are helping people. Because
Just to interrupt, 'cause I know you don't have much time, but it is a partnership, and without the government, it has been calculated that without government assistance, every parish in the United States would have to raise $50,000 in addition to what they're already doing. Every year, another 50, and that simply is not going to happen. It's a partnership. The government needs the faith community, but the faith community needs the government, and we hope you'll be there for us.
Well, I do look forward to bringing that back to the senator, and as we work on the Farm Bill.
Good. And we appreciate
Definitely.
that. We know that the senator, when she was in the State House, did a lot for poor people, and we hope that she'll continue to do this. As a
Yeah, but
senator.
I do have to share that SNAP is definitely one area that is just really bloated, and that a place that we can look to really look at what the qualifications
Well,
are for
yeah,
it.
actually, though, the beauty of the SNAP program is that when unemployment goes up, when hunger goes up, SNAP goes up. And then when the recession declines, as it's doing now, hopefully, the need for food stamps will go down. So it's a critical, although unemployment went up, hunger didn't go up. And the reason hunger didn't go up is because of the SNAP program. That is the reason. And so we hope you, the senator, will support this. But since you don't have much time, let's just go over the other issues. Was that
Oh,
okay?
certainly.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I have
Farmers
about another minute.
markets
Yeah.
too.
Another minute,
Yeah.
okay. Well, we hope you can support international assistance overseas. There, I just briefly, I was in Haiti after the earthquake, and it was just terrible, the devastation, but it was so important
the
that we were able
senator's
to.
so, you know that the senator is very much in favor of
Okay.
supporting people around the world that are really in real need.
Okay, but again, we're looking for support of a full multi-year farm program. This needs to be done this year. We hope you can do it. Another important thing is maintaining vibrant communities. Right now, I think it was 1945, the average age of the farmer was like 46 or something like that. Right now, it's 58. I mean, pretty soon I'll be your average farmer. You don't want that, right? So we gotta get new people into it. But it's very difficult for someone to start farming because of the equipment, the training that's needed. So one of the programs is bringing about new people into farming, young people, women, minorities, all kinds of young people.
Oh, those
into
are great
farming.
ideas. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'm glad
Absolutely.
we can count on your support.
Along with that, we'd really love to see support for farmers markets in the Farm Bill, because that not only provides an outlet for the farmers, but it also brings that highly nutritious food into the communities where it is often needed most, and the hungry people then can actually access with their SNAP benefit cards, they can actually access that highly nutritious food at the farmers markets.
So everybody wins on that one. And so the senator could support us on that?
The senator is definitely supportive of that. As you probably know from Pennsylvania, even here coming to Washington, D.C., our farmers come to farmers markets here in Washington,
Oh, that's
D.C., and the
beautiful.
senator is definitely in
That's great.
support of programs to help that.
Good.
Great.
One other thing about the international program, one thing that we have learned over the years is that it's much more important, and we actually save money if you can buy food at the site of the government.
Oh, 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. Well, I know you're busy, but if you can actually buy food at the place. Again, going back to Haiti, after the earthquake, the United States and other countries came in with massive food aid. Unfortunately, we brought food from our country, and we dumped it on there. And of course, then their farmers, they can't sell their food because everyone's getting free food. And it was terrible. We destroyed their agricultural system, trying to do well. So the new farm bill, we need to make sure that priority be given to buying locally grown, regionally grown food.
In other countries,
in
yeah.
other countries,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I'll definitely take your concerns on that back to the senator.
Good.
Great, thank you.
And then during our last 30 seconds is that as Christians, we believe that the environment, the world is God's creation, and we need to protect it. We are stewards. We're not there just to exploit the world. And that we want the Farm Bill to some specific programs. I'll leave this with you, but the Conservation Stewardship Program, which will help people to use good environmental practices, because so many disasters, natural disasters, are a result of bad farming methods.
Yeah.
And so we need to prevent that rather than just responding to new crises.
Right.
Well, again, it's so good that you came to
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Washington, D.C., and
Okay.
glad that I could meet with you. And
All right.
here's my
Oh,
business
great,
card.
Okay. Well, I hope to meet with you in a few months during your recess.
Oh, thank you.
Good,
Look
okay.
forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you to our actors. So very quickly, before we jump into a time for you to ask your questions about what makes a good lobby visit to your nitty-gritty questions on the Farm Bill, just if we could kind of call out a couple things that you thought went well in that visit.
So it went well. Any ideas?
Larry was persistent. That he was. They brought it back to the topic. That's right. They asked how much time the staffer had. And she explained how hungry people in their district, or their state rather, really look to the church. And I thought Larry did a nice job, Larry and Carol both did a nice job of kind of swatting down that the church can do it all argument. Last one right here. A little too verbose. So we're jumping into what could have gone better right now. A little too verbose. One thing that I thought went well was that they didn't get on topics of Penn State, Penn State basketball, or they didn't talk about where they were from. With a, it's that Dairy Queen on Main Street still there. Sometimes with our friends on the Hill, we can actually burn our time just by chit-chatting about home. Chit-chatting about cherry blossoms and the monuments and have you been here before. Remembering that your time with those staffers, your time on the Hill is precious. Use every minute. So jumping into what probably could have gone better.
Forgot the leave behind. They forgot to give the leave behind to the person and leave it behind. On that leave behind, just as an aside, if you know on the back of it, there's a piece of where you can write down a contact person, and that's on there specifically so you can leave behind and say, if you have any more questions, please contact me. So one of the things you'll do in your groups is decide who the person is. You all might leave business cards, and that's great if you can, or whatever you have. But if you want to choose one person who might be the person to leave stuff behind, that's going to be very helpful. The other thing I thought that was really good that you couldn't probably see as well, but I could see it was really kind of funny. Larry would not let Senator Gordon's hand go until he said his whole spiel real quick about passing a farm bill. She was not getting her. She was like using both hands to pry Larry away, about to call security. But so not getting that bad, but it's as an opportunity. If the senator comes in or the representative comes in and interrupts you, it's an opportunity to repeat your ask like they did very quickly. That's what handshakes are for. That's what phone pictures are for. So you can do that kind of repeating. Now some more of the things we could have done better.
More specific. So before leaving that office and before leaving that conversation with the staffer, getting specifics from that person as far as when they're going to get back to you on where the senator or representative is on that position, what you can expect next, what next steps would be. What else could have gone better? Right there. That's a great, so I'm, the question was, what about saying I am from First United Church. We have 750 members, and I want to remind you, we vote. I think any time that you can, of course, we know that we don't speak for every person in our congregation by being here, but any time that you remind your members of Congress that you're part of a community, you interact with people regularly. They remember that you're their boss. They remember that you vote. But when you remind them that you are a part of a connected network of people that you see regularly that have similar concerns, and you're all active citizens, I think that can go a long way. There. Yes, I can. That's a great one. Okay, she just said, would it help when we're told, churches are doing so much to feed our neighbors and our neighbors who are SNAP recipients, that those SNAP dollars go back to the local economies. They help generate jobs locally. Yes, somebody's been doing their homework. I believe it's about for every SNAP dollar, it's $1.84 the USDA recognizes that goes back. Into the local economy. And if you haven't noticed, the emphasis in Washington, kind of jobs, get our economy back. When we talk about these safety net programs being not only safety nets but trampolines, as far as they do help boost the economy and they help people rise out of poverty, that argument is really effective. And I think that highlighting the SNAP dollars that go back into the local economy is a good one. I think actually, Dr. Rossing, that's a very good question. I think we've naturally and organically moved into our question period, where we're gonna bring some policy experts up, and I'm really excited for them to introduce themselves over here. And we'll actually, if that's okay, we'll start with that question. As far as how best to address subsidies, direct payments, keeping in mind that farm subsidies are more than direct payments. There's also crop insurance that's part of that. But how to message that sensitively, how to talk about the accusations of SNAP being bloated, etc. So I'm going to turn the mic over to our expert panelists, and we'll start with Ferd, who will introduce himself.
Hi, Ferd Hefner, Policy Director for the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition.
And I'm Mary Minette. I'm with the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
I'm Christine Melendez-Ashley with Bread for the World. I work on federal nutrition policy.
Eric Mitchell with Bread for the World. I'm Government Relations Director.
So let me just start with that. The Farm Bill, by tradition and still today, is really driven by it's a long railroad, but it's driven by two engines, which is SNAP and the commodity subsidies, or the production subsidies for agriculture. Yeah. Okay. Is that better? So the Farm Bill is really driven by those two engines of production subsidies for farmers of the major commodities and the food stamp or SNAP program. There's a lot else to the Farm Bill, but those are really the drivers, and those are the two principal reasons why a Farm Bill didn't happen last year. And the Farm Bill didn't happen last year because the House Republican leadership never brought the bill to the floor. It was passed out of the committee of jurisdiction, which is the Agriculture Committee, back in July. So they basically had from July to December to bring it to the floor, and they never did. And the two principal problems were exactly those two things. In the minds of the House Republican leadership, commodity subsidies were too great, and even more so, the cuts to SNAP weren't nearly big enough, even though the House Agriculture Committee cut the SNAP program much, much more than the Senate committee did. So the question's right to the point that these are really front and center. There is, I think, good news in that there's an increasing realization on the part of the agriculture community that in all likelihood the cut to subsidies is going to go up. There's a kind of realism about it this year that there wasn't last year. That could help a little bit, but that doesn't solve the second problem, which is just a real ideological war over the SNAP program. To put it in perspective, the House budget resolution, which you pass a budget resolution to kind of guide policy, and the House budget resolution calls for $135 billion cut to the food stamp program over the next decade. To put that in perspective, the Senate budget resolution cut the SNAP program by zero. Hence, the difference between the House Republican leadership and the Senate Democratic leadership is $135 billion difference. And it's very, very difficult to even begin to use the word compromise when you're starting from such very different starting points. That being said, my expectation would be the Senate Agriculture Committee will pass a farm bill probably maybe in May, certainly by June. And if they do, the House Agriculture Committee will probably pass one. Once again, the cut to SNAP in the House will be bigger, but it won't be anything like $135 billion. It won't even be $35 billion. It will be lower. And if the House Republican leadership then decides to bring that bill to the floor, there is potential room for compromise.
Real quick, I misspoke on one thing on the presentation. Marty's going to correct it now.
Well, it's very complicated, and we don't understand it very well. But you might, and it's not something you really need to talk about, but you might get a question in your congressional meeting. So just hoping that we can kind of be on the same page. There's a discussion going on in the White House and the Congress, and it may come out in the President's budget next week, which may move the international food aid piece out of the Farm Bill into some other accounts, into the international disaster assistance, into development assistance. We don't have a position as EAD on whether that's good or bad. Our position is very simple. Wherever it's lodged, food aid needs to be robustly funded, not cut, because it's vital for people that are hungry. It needs to be nutritious food, and more of it needs to be purchased locally and regionally where it's being consumed and where it's being needed. So if you get asked, well, the President's budget, President's probably going to want to move it out of food aid, international food aid, out of the Farm Bill. What do you think about that? Unless you happen to have an opinion on this, you're welcome to give your own view, of course. But our position as EAD is we don't have a position on that as such, but we do want more of this aid to be in the form of cash grants to be purchased in the region where it's consumed rather than shipping all of it as commodities. Okay?
TC? And when you ask the question, ask if you have a particular, well, we don't have anything to shoot, just ask the question. Never mind. Number 5. Number 5.
How do you respond to the legislative aide or whomever who says, don't forget that S in SNAP means supplemental? And, I'm sure, they're aware of the food stamp challenge and the fact that, oh yes, it is difficult to, survive on $3.15 a day, but S is for supplemental.
It's a really good question. I get that on the Hill a lot too. I think it's important to remind these folks that while the program is meant to be supplemental, we have a very high unemployment rate. We have a lot of folks who are working and and still qualify for the program. And the food budget is the one budget that can be squeezed, right? You have to pay your rent, you have to pay your utilities. You can't just say, well, I'll pay you half my rent this month, to your landlord. So when it comes time to pay for food, that's what can get squeezed. And so a lot of times that their SNAP benefit ends up being the only money that goes towards food. And as we know, it does only last 3 weeks out of the month for a lot of people. So I would just remind folks that it's not that people don't want to be working. It's not that people want to be only living off of food stamps. It's that this is a reality right now in the economy that we're living in when wages haven't been keeping pace.
Specifically regarding the international food aid, assuming that it stays in the Farm Bill, and we're discussing using cash grants to make sure that the food is purchased locally. How can we make sure that those cash grants actually get to the people it needs to get to, as opposed to staying in a government that just wants to seize the money for themselves? I've heard rumors in the past that that's what's happened, is that money has gone to countries specifically to help the people, and instead the government just holds on to it and never actually gets to the people it needs to. So is there a plan in place to make sure it gets to where it needs to be?
Short answer is we'll know for sure, at least in regards to the proposal, when the president comes out with his budget later this week. But there's an understanding that some of that money may go directly towards agencies that do provide services in those countries. And in the administration's view, they've said that they believe that they'll increase the reach by approximately around 2 million people. They'll be able to feed 2 million more people based on the shifting of dollars. But again, we won't really know the specifics until the budget proposal firmly comes out next week.
In the past, there's been concerns, and I'm one of those persons that's concerned about a lot of the Farm Bill money has gone for large corporations in monoculture rather than to small farmers who really need the subsidy. What is the concern about that with this upcoming Farm Bill?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the commodity and crop insurance subsidies that are available have some really important safety net aspects to them, but also have some real problems. One problem is environmental. It tends to encourage production on marginal land and increases, the stress to the environment. So that's an issue. The chief way that policy deals with that issue is something called conservation compliance. So in order to receive commodity aid, you have to have a soil conservation plan and you have to protect wetlands on your farm. Very important. In crop insurance, however, which is the bigger of the two subsidies now, those conservation requirements do not currently apply. So a very big issue in this Farm Bill is attaching conservation requirements to the receipt of crop insurance subsidies. I should pause also because I got this question yesterday. The crop insurance subsidies may sound like a funny term, but when farmers take out federal crop insurance policies, they pay for anywhere between 15 and 50% of the premium, and the taxpayer pays for the majority of the premium. So that's where the subsidy is involved. Or it's actually one of several subsidies, but that's the most important one. So conservation is one issue, but then there's also the issue that the question went to, which is support for different sizes and types of farms. So the commodity support is available to the principal row crops, and so your grain crops as well as cotton. And because there's a subsidy involved, and it's not the only reason, but all other things being equal, farmers are going to plant more of what's subsidized, and so we have a less diverse agriculture as a result. It's an incredibly important issue. One of the best ways of getting at that through policy is by supporting the Conservation Stewardship Program, which was mentioned in the slide presentation, because that actually rewards farmers for diversifying their production. So that's really important. And then last but definitely not least is that currently the subsidies, both crop insurance and commodities, are pretty much however big your farm gets, you get subsidies on all of it, basically. That's by law on crop insurance and against the statute on commodity support, but unfortunately on the commodity side, there's all sorts of loopholes that have been built into the regulations at the Department of Agriculture, such that it's pretty much unlimited support, which leads to this very important comment. There is a bill pending in the Senate called the Farm Program Integrity Act. It's introduced by Senator Grassley, Republican of Iowa, Senator Enzi, Republican of Wyoming, and Senator Johnson, Democrat of South Dakota, and Senator Brown, Democrat of Ohio. And it would get rid of those loopholes that I mentioned, and so that commodity support would actually be limited to a modest amount for any one farmer. So that's really important. The other piece, the Farm Program Integrity Act, there will be a House version of it, but it hasn't been introduced yet. That will be by Congressman Jeff Fortenberry of Nebraska. As soon as I can finish writing it. But that's one of my tasks later today. So anyway, on crop insurance, there are no similar limits. And last year on the Senate floor, Senator Shaheen from New Hampshire proposed limits on crop insurance. We hope that she'll bring that back this year.
Some of us have wonderful Democratic people in Congress, and I'm wondering what the response is if we just kind of start emailing lots of Republicans about changing their mind no matter what state you're from.
Obviously, you're most likely to be heard by an office if you're a constituent. There's nothing certainly to stop you from doing that. But it's always best to come in with an example that affects their state. So if you're going to contact someone who is not your direct representative, be as specific as possible about how their state is being affected. But the other thing to do is to just, if you're part of a network, encourage people who are from that state to do the contacting, because really their voice is going to be louder than yours regardless.
Last spring when we were lobbying for our food pantry, the representative of our senator said, no, no, no. Spending money locally is a bad idea because you flood the market with American dollars, you drive up the cost of food locally, and you suck up all the food, and then really poor people in that area can't buy food. We didn't have a comeback for that. International, I'm sorry.
I don't know, trying to understand the question, but from where I understand, sorry. No, just trying to understand the meaning behind that person's statement. I mean, our understanding is that when you bring American products into a local country, you drive down the cost of that product, thereby hurting the local economy of those farmers in that region, which is why they want you to support, which is why people are urged to support local and regional procurement, because you're helping to build the economy in that local country. Many of the people who are opposed to changes to food aid, et cetera, are folks who have a financial benefit to shipping products from here to that local region or local country, which drives up the cost for us to be able to provide food aid overseas. So, I don't necessarily know the best way of responding to that person's particular question, but, the facts are that I believe last year it would cost around $400 million for us to be able to provide food aid, or for example, when you do monetization or something of that nature, where in turn those local agencies in those countries only receive about half of that in direct dollars. It would be much cost effective for us to give those cash directly to some of those agencies to be able to provide services. So I know that's not necessarily a position, or folks here haven't really made a position on that, but our position is that it helps build local economies by providing local regional procurement in those countries.
I walk into the office and I say, we want you to support a strong farm bill for multi-years. And they say, we have this terrible national debt, this huge deficit, we got to cut across the board.
For better or for worse, there is a bipartisan consensus that this particular farm bill will be a deficit-reducing farm bill. So there's already broad agreement that the total funding for the farm bill goes down. The issue is who takes the hit? Is it going to be conservation and God's creation? Is it going to be poor and hungry people? Or is it going to be subsidies of various kinds? And that's really how it's framed up. With the way the Senate dealt with that last year, because the Senate actually passed a farm bill last year on the floor, and they cut the existing bill by $23 billion, 15 from subsidies, 6 from conservation and environment, and 4 from the SNAP program. It would not be surprising to see the Senate come back with something fairly similar. We're going to try to tamp down the last 2 pieces as much as possible. Importantly, the Senate passed a budget resolution just a few weeks ago, again said they would cut the farm bill by $23 billion, but importantly said none of that will come from conservation or SNAP. We really want to applaud the Senate for doing that.
Hi. Is there anything in this year's farm bill on pesticide use or requiring those that get the subsidies, particularly the big ag, for watershed protection or runoff from pesticides, anything like that, or anything that strengthens organic farming?
Yeah, good question. The pesticide regulation, which is an EPA function and not a Department of Agriculture function, is not done through the Farm Bill, so not the kind of label restrictions and testing requirements. But in the conservation title of the Farm Bill, there are things that are really important for pesticides. Conservation Stewardship Program, which is in your leave behind, is one of them. Farmers who are doing integrated pest management but want to do it at a very advanced level can get support through the Conservation Stewardship Program, so it's really helpful in that respect. Also, it goes back to an earlier question, the more diversified somebody's operation is, especially if they're using resource-conserving crop rotations, it reduces the needs for pesticides to begin with. And there's some important provisions in the crop insurance title to actually provide insurance for diversified operators rather than monocultures. So it's called whole farm insurance. That's another piece that would really help on the pesticide front.
I was just going to add, there's also in the Farm Bill assistance to farmers who are trying to go organic. It's mentioned in one of the background documents in case it's something that people want to talk about, but it's an expensive process, and so that assistance can be a really important push for people to do that.
Yeah, just so on that point, all the organic programs in the Farm Bill, as well as the programs for beginning farmers, minority farmers, farmers markets, fruit and vegetable research, all of these programs are what we call the stranded programs. When Congress extended the Farm Bill until September 30th of this year, they extended everything except all those things I just mentioned, which they left out. So they don't currently exist, the beginning farmer program and the minority or socially disadvantaged farmer program in your packets, the farmers market program that's also in your packet, and all the organic programs don't exist right now because they weren't included in the Farm Bill extension. So one of our very strong messages is that those programs that were left behind cannot be left behind again.
Last question, I think.
Thanks for bringing that up, because that was in the back of my head, mine too. And also, I'm really concerned, or our organization is really concerned about the biotech and gypsa riders. So if we can reinforce to our legislators that those should not continue into the next Farm Bill, because I know the House included those last year. So thanks.
There was a question about that. Questions, we can talk about that. Do we have any more on that? It's a very complicated thing. So, yeah. Let me just, one more thing. If you get asked a question by the staffer that you don't know the answer to, what's your answer? I'll get back to you and get back to them, all right? And what you can do with that answer is, and you've got all the sponsoring people that help bring you here. They have answers to, they can help you get those answers to that.
I think that there's a lot of information, and a lot of information you can kind of, anytime we learn something, whether it's new or not new, it just helps to go back, reread those documents in your folder tonight. People will be here to ask questions. You can ask your questions to today. People will be at the church tomorrow as we go. I love this one story that I always hear from my Episcopal colleagues, probably because it involves an Episcopal bishop. And they have this story where an Episcopal bishop was visiting President Reagan in the Oval Office and was advocating for programs that helped hungry people. And President Reagan looked at the bishop and said, "Bishop, I'm sorry, how do you suggest we pay for all of this? How on earth do you suggest we do this?" And the bishop said, "Mr. President, it is my job to ensure that justice flows like water. It is your job as an elected official to figure out the plumbing." That's to say that you're a constituent. This is not your job. Your job is to talk about what's going on at home, what's important to you, about the global relationships that you have as a person of faith, why a strong farm bill matters. It's their job to be the wonk. It's their job to know the ins and outs. So if you don't feel like we had a lot of great information shared with us. If you don't have a complete grasp on all of it, that's okay. Not your job. You're a grassroots advocate. Your pastors, your nurses, your teachers, and you do a great job of that at home. So just bring your constituent know-how and your common sense into the room, share what's important, and you'll be just fine.
So I want to thank our panelists that came up here to help us, our experts. Thanks a lot. They were great. Thanks to our EAD players. The way we're going to move this forward is, again, you're going to, at 5:15 to 6:30, your EAD organizing for Lobby Day will be done by breakouts by states. You can look at how your states or regions are put together on page 4 of the schedule. It kind of tells you the rooms that your different groups are. There'll be somebody in there to help you lead through a process of working through setting up your visit and how, or not setting up your visit, but planning your visit. Your visit's already been set up. So setting up and doing that kind of planning piece. So you'll be with other people. So it's very important. I know you may be tired, but that's very important you go to that, because people, we've often sometimes get people to show up, and we've got to be prepared for this. One other thing I would say that we were very unfair to our skit people. We gave them less time than you will probably have. There may be some cases you may have that little bit of time, but more often than not, you're going to have a little bit more time than that. But again, that level of focus, that level of knowing what you want to ask and going back to it, that becomes, again, the way we need to practice this and model this. The rest of the day, I know Doug's got a couple of announcements. We will have a workshop session following after this workshop, issue session number 3. And then there are 2 sets, they're repeated twice, so it's the same workshop is repeated twice. So you can go to either, you can go to 2, these EAD skills workshops. These, again, are designed as kind of short, 45-minute workshops. They're designed with specific skill sets to help you either get better at social networking. We hear that a lot. That's really an important piece if we're going to get more effective at this, at media, at how do you use film, how do you use community gardens, how do you invite people new into building this movement. This is how you go back home and continue to build this. So it's really important. They're great people. We've got resources to do that. There's descriptions of those in the program as well. Those are offered twice. Again, I mentioned the EAD organizing for Lobby Day. And then we have our banquet this evening at 7 o'clock back here. I don't know, Doug, if you have more to say on stuff. So Doug has more to say, so come on, Doug. Thank you for your time. And here's Doug, and Doug will release us when he's done.
Thank you, Russ. Well, this is our last time together before tonight. So I want to highlight, this is in your packet. It's time to begin talking about next year. Sorry. Save the date for next year, March 21st to 24th, 2014. It's in your packet. I encourage you to mark that on your calendar. Each year, we've already talked about, we take a collection at EAD. And we've began our collection with people bringing tableware and donating that to a local charity. We will be taking a collection tonight for a Church World Service program, for food security program in Kenya. So I just want to highlight that again to be prepared for that this evening. EAD, typically participants contribute anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 total every year that is given for a program that we have selected and for the young adult program. And so I'd like to report that you've already contributed $2,500 from this morning's offering. So you're a generous people. Thank you for that. It's time to begin to talk about the buses for tomorrow. We'll talk about it tonight, but I want to hopefully get it through everyone, and you can tell your neighbors and your friends when they ask questions. There will be 2 sets of buses in the morning at 7:30 and at 9. So you can choose yourself when you want to go. You don't have to take the bus. You can also take the metro if you want to go on your own leisure time. The metro is very close from here. But the buses will leave from the Lincoln Hall lobby. So that's the lobby on this side of the building. Lincoln Hall is just right below us, and there's an exit right there. And the buses will be lined up at that point. If you need to check out, you can bring your luggage with you, put it on the bus, and you can keep it stored at the church. And then you can leave from there on your way to the airport or to wherever. If you are staying here, if your car's here, you can check your luggage with the bellman here and then come back to the hotel. We provide buses there, but everyone's on their own on their way to get back or to get to the airport. So again, I would recommend either the metro or the taking a cab back here to the hotel or to the airport. We do have metro maps in the resource room if you need that. Evaluations are in your packet. If you have time to fill that out before you leave, please leave it at the registration table. On the table, we'll collect them, or feel free to mail them back to us. Russ mentioned that we're going to break into organizing by state, and there's a couple changes. So if you look in your packet, you'll list your state and where you're meeting. Those that are from Arkansas and Tennessee, it says the Senate. We're switching that to the Lincoln Hall, and that's the big hall. And you'll be joined by people in Lincoln Hall that are from Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Delaware, and Alabama. And adding, of course, Arkansas and Tennessee. So you all meet in that room and then break out for the conversations amongst yourselves. Let's see here. I think that is it. I encourage everyone to be here right at 7 o'clock for our banquet. Congressman McGovern will be here. He has to leave early. So we will begin with our salads and a piece of bread to tide us over, and then he will speak to us, and then our dinner will begin after that, and then we will take the collection for the Church World Service offering. Anything else, Kate? Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Kate, for putting this together today and for all your work doing, and for the Advocacy Resource Room. And so she has been the inspiration behind us getting that all together. So we want to thank Kate. Well, thank you to all of you, and we'll see you back here at 7 o'clock. Enjoy your afternoon.